So, hello and welcome to the very first podcast of BundesSpeaker, the very new, very original, and hopefully very interesting podcast from us here at Fresh Off the Gegenpress. I'm sure you'll have visited the website by now. It's probably how you found us at freshgegenpress.com. But we are a website that hopes to provide you with the most interesting, most new content and the best sort of stuff on the web. We talk about German football, European football, and today we are going to have a bit of a review of the Bundesliga season. So I'm Ali Haggis, I'm the founder, I'm the editor, and I'm here with my fellow founder and fellow editor, Axel.
Hi.
Hi to you. We're both on Twitter. I'm at Ali Haggis, and Axel is at Millennium Falk. And of course, you can find the site on Twitter as well at Fresh Gegenpress. So, Axel, first of all, just a quick overview of the season. What did you think of it? And, well, if you want, you can also introduce yourself, I guess, seeing as this is the first time anyone's heard from you.
Oh yeah, fair enough. Here's my voice. I'm Axel. I'm from Sweden. So my accent might be a bit off sometimes, but that's fine, I hope. I'm very enthusiastic about this project we have started up, and I'm a big fan of German football and Eintracht Frankfurt in particular. So yesterday was a bit of a tough day for me where Frankfurt drew against Nuremberg, and Marco Russ was diagnosed with cancer as well. But that's me. This season has been up and down. It's been very, very interesting. Many odd things have happened, like in Europe, of course, Leicester won the Premier League. Seems like Villarreal finished in the top four in La Liga, but in Germany, teams like Hertha Berlin and Mainz actually managed to reach European football, which I hadn't expected beforehand. Especially Mainz was big surprise to me, so I did not think they would reach European football. It felt like an unfathomably tough task, but we'll talk about that later. It's been a great season, a bit better than last season due to the fact that it's been a bit more even at the top.
Yep, a bit more competitive with Dortmund playing well again.
Yeah, right, correct.
Yeah, and I think you've seen a lot of progress this year in the Bundesliga. It's not just that Bayern have won the title again. Yes, they have. Yes, they sealed it by 10 points. Yes, they sent Guardiola out on a high. But it's not about that. You look further down the league, you can see, as you said, how the two smaller clubs are developing themselves. Bayer Leverkusen came on very strong at the end of the season. Dortmund were looking impressive. And then in the other direction, you've got teams like Stuttgart, who finally dropped through the trapdoor after a couple of seasons of struggling. Wolfsburg looked very poor. So yeah, the aim for today, I guess, is for us to have a bit of a run through the league table, a bit of a review of each team, what went well for them, what went bad for them, and sort of what they're going to look forward to over the summer. So I guess it would make sense to start at the top and start with Bayern Munich and our champions of 2016.
Yeah, Bayern's season was a bit disappointing. They did win the Bundesliga and they might win Deutsche Pokal as well. But the way they played didn't feel like Bayern to me. It felt more like bored Barcelona kind of thing. They played some possession football. Fine, that's fine. That's beautiful sometimes. But Guardiola's teams, they have this way of playing. When they play well, it looks amazing. When they play bad, it's just so boring to watch. And I think that's how it's been for most of the season. Only due to the magic of Thomas Müller and Robert Lewandowski have they won Bundesliga, in my opinion. Without those two players, maybe possibly Borussia Dortmund would have won. So it's been I would be, I wouldn't be disappointed by the results, but I'd be disappointed by the way they played.
Yeah, I think that's what you have to look at. I mean, looking at their record, they were incredible. There's no doubt about it. They only lost twice all season. Um, Scored 80 goals, which wasn't actually the most. It was two behind Dortmund, but only conceded 17, which is really, really impressive. And less than a goal every 2 games. So no, a goal every 2 games. Sorry, my math's awful. Um,
That's like Stuttgart level.
yeah, so yeah, we'll get to that later. That's slightly different. Yeah, we'll leave the maths to other people, and I'll talk about the football. Um, yeah, I agree with you in that sense. I think the other thing you have to look at, particularly with the Guardiola reign, is the players that have been key to his success have been players that were there already. So Manuel Neuer, Philip Lahm, as you mentioned, Lewandowski, Müller, Lewandowski, um, players that weren't necessarily brought in by him have made the biggest difference. And
Right.
but I don't know. I don't know whether that says anything or not. But yeah, I mean, you have to look and say that team has been incredible this year, and they've deservedly won the title again. But as you say, it's whether the performances match the results really, and especially in Europe as well. I think you have to say they failed in Europe.
Yeah.
For the third season in a row. So yeah, we'll move on from Bayern now, but we're kind of mixed reviews. We'll say mixed reviews for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So second up then is Borussia Dortmund, and what are your thoughts on that?
It's hard to say. I mean, I am hugely impressed by what has been achieved by Thomas Tuchel after the club left and after last season as well. I mean, it's been one hell of a season for the Schwarzgelb, but with a few bumps here and there, without those bumps, they would have won Bundesliga, I'm sure. Because I mean, with the point tally they have, well, the point tally they finished with, they would have won Bundesliga in like 5 of the 6 last seasons.
Yeah.
With an exception for the 2012-2013 season, where Bayern were absolutely amazing. I mean, with that in mind, they have been playing fantastic football, maybe even the most amazing football in Europe this season. They've played some extraordinary games and extraordinary play. Had some fantastic players in Mkhitaryan, Aubameyang, Hummels, which now leads for Bayern, of course, and Royce, of course. But they could have done even better, I think. Without those bumps versus, Darmstadt versus Cologne, Frankfurt, they would have won the league. And that's a bit unnecessary to me.
You have to say it's the defence that let them down again. Like last season, their defence was atrocious. This year it's been much better, but it's still. You have to say it's cost them the title, really, because, as you say, offensively they were probably the best team in Europe this season, especially to watch. Maybe they didn't fit some sort of incredible theoretical model, but they were fast-paced. They were everything you wanted from a team if you were watching them. And I remember we were at the game against Tottenham in the Europa League, and they played them off the park.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't Spurs' strongest attacking side, but defensively it was their first choice unit, and they passed them off the pitch in that 3-0 win and sealed the tie in the first game. So yeah, I think you have to say you'd be impressed by Dortmund's.
Yeah, of course.
But losing next year, what do you think on that in terms of going forward into the Champions League and into next year?
It's hard to say. If they can replace Mats Hummels with like Toprak or Tar, well then maybe they will do well in Bundesliga. But to reach like semi-final in Champions League, I think they need to strengthen with something a bit better, like Manolas from Roma, or something like that. Not necessarily Tar or Toprak, who are the only ones I've heard anything about recently. And even though both Toprak and Tar are marvelous players, absolutely marvelous, fantastic centre backs, both good with their feet and great at defending. But when it comes to quality, I think they could do even better. And with having sold Hummels, they should have some money saved up. So it depends on what they are looking for. If they were looking for a fight at the top of Bundesliga, well then Tar or Toprak should be the choice. But and I mean that should be enough to fight for the title. As with a new manager, Bayern will probably struggle a bit, I suppose, of course. So with a new centre back and without losing Mkhitaryan or Aubameyang, they could challenge Bayern Munich, but they would reach semi-final at most in Champions League.
Okay, that's still pretty positive, I think, considering where they've come from this year. That's quite a leap in 2 years under Tuchel. Okay, so we mentioned Tar and Toprak. So should we move on to their employers down in the Stadt of Leverkusen?
Atrocious city, horrible city.
we were all of the cities in this list are treated equally in our eyes. But yes, no, Leverkusen's horrible.
It is. It's ugly. It's like I can't really compare.
It's just a factory town, isn't it? It's a very
it is. It's like Wolfsburg, I'd expect. I haven't been to Wolfsburg.
Yes, no, it is. It's very similar to Wolfsburg.
Okay, yeah. Fair enough.
So if we could compare that to the football team then, which was anything but functional and dull. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But Leverkusen, though,
yes,
they started off in a mediocre way. They, they won 5-4 at home against Stuttgart. They drew against Rome at home 4-4. So, I mean, their defense wasn't the best at the start, but as both Tar and Toprak have played more and more, the defense has, it has become a lot better during the spring, and I think they have the second best defensive record in the league, I think, which is amazing. So and I think that's what has made them such a solid team in these last few months. That they have this amazing defense, which isn't too usual for Bayer Leverkusen. They're often a team with much better attack than defense.
Yeah, but I think watching them earlier in the season, you could see that they were lacking the fluency. They were, I think, they were struggling with the changeover from Kiesling to Chicharito up front, particularly, because that's a complete change of style. It's a completely different type of frontman that they'd bought. But once they got that going, and once Charles Aranguiz came back from injury, I think you have to say they were one of the better teams in the league, one of the best. And obviously that's shown by their third position, but until February time they were pretty dull to watch as well.
Yeah,
they really kicked on in the latter half of the season. What about them? Champions League next year?
I could see them. I mean, as they have already acquired Baumgartlinger from Mainz and Kevin Folland from Hoffenheim, I could see them reaching a quarterfinal actually, if they keep the squad together and don't lose anyone, basically.
Yeah.
But they probably will lose someone, so I expect a quarterfinal is a maximum for me.
That's a couple of good signings.
It is.
Cool. Good. And their aim for the league next year, would you say the same thing? Qualify for the Champions League?
I would probably.
Yes.
It's a hard enough task to actually qualify for the Champions League in Bundesliga, and to actually challenge Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund would be a bit too much to ask from them. be a bit too tough, I expect. I don't think, right now there's no team in Bundesliga that could actually challenge those two for the top two spots. But if there was a team, I'd say it would be Leverkusen. But I don't think they are ready just yet.
Okay. No, fair enough. I think that's fairly a standard opinion. Sorry, yeah, sounded like an insult. Moving on to Borussia Mönchengladbach, everybody's favourite spelling test answer. Sneaked into fourth space. Well, sneaked.
Yeah.
I would say sneaked because Schalke came fifth. Sneaked into fourth space into the Champions League again for the second season running. Good times are returning to Mönchengladbach.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, when you said that about spelling, I have to spell Mönchengladbach. It's M-O with an umlaut, N-C-H-E-N-G-L-A-D-B-A-C-H. There it is. I had to. Thank you. It's hard to say. They've been a bit like Schalke, very inconsistent for the whole season, up and down, constantly up and down. The defense has been bad, really bad, throughout the season. Almost every game, the defense has looked shaky, and I think almost like the defense has been more effective in attack than the defense, because Christensen has scored, I think, 3 or 4 goals, and Nordtveit scored like 3 or 4 goals as well. So the defenders have scored quite a few goals, but they haven't defended as good as they probably should have.
Yeah.
But yeah, and in attack, as always, Mönchengladbach are always interesting to watch in attack. They play very quick game, very high pressing game with. I mean it's exciting to watch, and it has been exciting this season once again. So
yeah, and you have to say they did well to replace Max Kruse, or to cope without him, should I say? They didn't really bring in anybody as a direct replacement. They didn't go for anything like that, and yet the squad pulled through, and they've got some very talented young wingers who were injured for a lot of the season. So Andre Hahn and Patrick Hammond were both out, both spent extended spells on the sideline. So they've done. I would say they've been inconsistent, but they've had their problems. They've had their injury issues, and they obviously had the awful start where Favre resigned. So for them to finish fourth was pretty impressive in the end, and their goal difference, pretty solid considering they conceded 50 goals, which is pretty high on that list of.
Whoa.
It must be a mid-table, I think. Yeah, looking down, it's in about mid-table of goals conceded, but goals for they got 67.
Wow.
Which again is very impressive. That's the third best goal record in the league. So considering all that went on there this season and the pressure from 3 clubs for that fourth spot on the last day, Gladbach needed to win in Darmstadt to confirm that they were going to be in the Champions League again, and had Schalke, Mainz and Hertha all potentially breathing down their neck. So they've done it. I think they've done very well to secure it again. The problem now for Mönchengladbach is going to be next season, because Nordtveit has already signed a pre-contract agreement with West Ham. The rumours about Granit Xhaka to Arsenal are getting stronger every day. Twitter is currently reporting on Twitter that it's pretty much sorted. So if they lose their captain and their main central player, then that could be another season of sort of clinging on to fourth spot again.
Yeah, I can see that. Depending on who they bring in, I could like to see them bring in like, say, Vlad from Hertha. Yeah. Or someone like that.
Someone from one of the smaller clubs because the draw of Gladbach is that crowd, that sort of 52,000, pretty much every week sold out crowd. is a very big draw.
Yeah, it is. It
Very
is.
enjoyable atmosphere down there, very positive, and I think that would attract many people down there.
Yeah, I think it would. And like a play like Darida or Grilic from Werder Bremen, even, or someone to replace Xhaka.
Yeah.
One of those would fit the bill, I'd say.
Yep. Okay. Move on down. We'll move on to my Königsblau, my FC Schalke.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, in case that wasn't clear from that introduction, I've selected Schalke as my team of choice in the German Bundesliga. So I guess I'll go for a bit of a run through on them, and you can correct me when I've been too biased. I like to try and stay balanced on this. So Schalke for me were very, very inconsistent. Pretty much the definition of inconsistency this season. Very middle of the road performances. Some weeks they were very, very good. Some weeks they were very, very bad. Most of the time they were just pretty boring, pretty abject, really. They managed to finish in fifth. It looked at times like they were actually going to sneak into the Champions League spot. Probably should have done, but managed to lose some games that they probably should have won. Managed to embarrass themselves 3-0 away against Ingolstadt, which certainly doesn't help anybody. I think they've just been not good enough at key times in the season to qualify for the Champions League, but at the same time, the beginnings were there that next season they could have been a force to be reckoned with under Breitenreiter, particularly with the new. I rate Christian Streich as a general manager coming in to run the transfer side of business. I think that those two would have made a very good team, but with Breitenreiter relieved of his duties, the entire club is going through another summer of overhaul.
Right.
So we'll have to see how that happens. They're obviously embarrassed in the Europa League as well, losing 3-0 at home to Shakhtar Donetsk. So, yeah, personally it was a disappointing season. I don't think you would necessarily disagree that you were disappointed with them.
Yeah, I am. Even though I'm more fond of Borussia Dortmund than Schalke, so I'm not. But I mean, I would be disappointed with the season due to the way they were played, mostly. I mean, fifth, well, possibly fair. I'm not sure. I mean, those three teams, Schalke, Gladbach, and Leverkusen, they are quite similar in many ways. They are very alike. So, I mean, I'm not sure. Fifth might be a bit harsh, but considering the way that they played for a big part of the season, I'd say it's fair. Yeah. But I mean, I wouldn't be disappointed in that aspect because of the season they have had. I think fifth is, as I said, very fair. But from if you would have predicted at the start of the season that you were going to finish fifth, I would say I would have called you a bit pessimistic.
Yeah, true. Well, I think I'm going to be optimistic going into next season. We'll obviously have to wait and see how the manager or the trainer issue resolves itself. Who's going to be brought in there? Marcus Weinzel was obviously heavily tipped with that. I don't know if it'd be a good move for him or for us, but I'd not have any problems with it. Certainly, he's proved himself to be an excellent trainer down in Augsburg. So, but the positive news is that Joel Matip has been immediately replaced with Naldo, which I think is a fantastic signing.
It is.
Experienced centre back, knows the Bundesliga, had some very good experiences with Wolfsburg and Champions League football, etc. So, very, very happy with that signing.
Yeah, I would be too, to be honest. He's a very good player, and for free, of course, it's perfect. Because it is a pre-contract, isn't it? Yeah. Very, very good signing.
Yeah. Right, so we'll move on to the two that you mentioned right at the top of the show, Mainz and Hertha. What are we looking at here?
Mainz and Hertha, both clubs have been very impressive for a big part of the season, but both clubs have also faltered at the end of the season. Have played very badly at the end of the season, and especially Hertha have been really disappointing actually to watch during the last like 6 or 7 games. They were actually placed third, I think, but then they started losing, and well, they finished sixth. But I mean, in comparison to last season, it's been one hell of a season for them. Fantastic season. So I wouldn't be anything other than happy if I were, a Berliner. And with a Berliner, I'm not referring to the donut. I'm referring to the city, of course.
I don't know. I'd be quite happy if I was a donut.
Yeah, fair enough. With jelly.
I remember you mentioned when we were sort of chatting about what we were going to talk about that Derrida's injury towards the end of the season really hindered.
Yeah, it did.
Berlin's progress. So.
It did. I mean, he was probably the most important player, together with Brooks, I would say. And without him, it hasn't looked good. The midfield hasn't clicked, and he is what makes the team tick.
Yeah.
Derrida. So without him, it hasn't ticked. And with two only defensively minded midfielders in Luxemburger and Shelbred, I think they play with those two. It has been a bit too pessimistic, and they haven't found ways to break through the attack.
Yeah.
As both Valentin Stocker and even Tsigachi and Baumjohann have all been disappointing.
Yeah, and you'd say the key players for both of those teams that have ended up in the Europa League slots would be their holding midfielders. As you said, Baumgartling has found a transfer from Mainz to Leverkusen, so he's moving up the chain a bit. But he was their captain. He was certainly the influence behind their strong season. You have to say that both of the teams their squads, aren't they? They're very much their success is based on their togetherness and the ability of all the players to play together in a system.
Yes.
And the two sort of main stars, as you say, so Derrida at Berlin and Baumgartling at Mainz have certainly attracted eyes from elsewhere. So we'll see whether Derrida's still in Berlin for next year for their Europa League push, but it looks like Baumgartling will be playing Champions League football, as you say, in Leverkusen. So we'll see how they cope next year. You can kind of potentially see European football taking its toll a bit, especially on Mainz.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think Berlin will be fine. Actually, I'm more concerned with Mainz, but due to what they have achieved this season with losing guys and losing Okazaki to Leicester, and they've still managed to actually finish higher than last season. I think they finished like 14th or something last season, and this season they finished 6th.
Yeah,
it was, and I mean that's an amazing achievement considering the team they have. And without guys like Okazaki, other players had to step up, and players like Stefan Bell, Daniel Latza, who was a newcomer from Bochum, and Jonas Mali, Muto, and Cordoba as well have had to step up and do their part. And I mean that has led to Mainz being a major force in Bundesliga this season, which I'm very, very surprised with.
Yeah. Okay. Shall we move on then? Move on to they're going to be my biggest disappointment. I don't know if they are your biggest disappointment as well, but Wolfsburg for me in 8th place were definitely the biggest letdown of the season as far as I'm concerned.
They were shocking. Absolutely shocking. I mean, I haven't seen a team. Okay, yeah, fair enough. Dortmund last season.
Yeah, but that's something else.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I haven't seen a team go from being that exciting to watch, that amazing, that exciting to watch, to being this boring, this horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, Dortmund you could see signs during the 2013-2014 season that they were on the decline. And that was confirmed in the last season, of course,
Yeah.
with Klopp. But this season, I just can't explain why Wolfsburg have fallen, so to speak.
Mm.
I can't explain
Yeah.
it. I mean, I'm sure Kevin De Bruyne left, but they replaced him with Julian Draxler, which is
Yeah.
an amazing placement.
Yeah, it's I think that's been the biggest disappointment because they brought in Max Kruse, they brought in Julian Draxler, two good, very exciting players, and both of their careers sort of flatlined at the same time. Oddly, Draxler undoubtedly will still be one of the best players around at some point, but had a very poor season. Kruse, I was always a bit skeptical that he was as big as he thought he was. Certainly, and whether he's as big as Wolfsburg think he is, that's another question. But his ability doesn't match his ego. A bit like their other striker in Nicholas Bentner.
Yeah, true.
Everybody's favourite striker is Bentner.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah, so I think that's been the biggest problem because they lost De Bruyne, but they've kept the rest of the squad, including that very impressive defence that they had the season before last when they came second. And I don't know what's happened. Their attack has gone completely stale and their defence disappeared. It's a pretty poor defensive record. Nothing, just a very middle of the road season. And I mean, hopefully next season they'll work it out and they'll be able to go again, especially without any sort of European distraction. But yeah, I'd say that was a pretty disappointing. My biggest disappointment certainly of the season was.
Yeah, it was. Except from, to me, of course, Frankfurt. But I mean,
that's true. Well, we'll get to that.
Yeah. So
Cologne, FC Cologne. Ending up mid-table.
Yeah, quite expected. I'm a bit surprised by them, actually. Even though it was expected for them to finish mid-table, I'm very surprised by the way they played, because they played quite good from time to time. I think they played better football than Wolfsburg, honestly. And many games they've actually dominated games against like Dortmund, who were the better team, away and in Cologne and in Dortmund. The last game they were quite fantastic actually. And at home against Dortmund they won, I think 3-1. And that game they were amazing, fantastic. So I mean, Cologne are it's a very odd team, it's a very odd city, it's a very odd dialect. But
I think, I don't know, like if you asked me in March and said they'll finish 9th, I'd said that flattered to deceive how well they played. But then looking back on the season as a whole, you can't really argue with it. They've had some good performances, they've had some less good performances. Squad suits that sort of league position.
Yeah, it does.
It was just how quickly they moved away from relegation trouble with sort of 2 months to go. They were right in it, struggling around the borders of it. But yeah, that's good. So that's Cologne. Then we're pretty happy with that. Just sort of standard mid-table finish. Cool. So then Hamburg.
Yes.
Yeah. Somehow finding themselves on the edge of the top half.
Yeah, it's surprising a bit. They haven't changed too much from last season. They brought in Ekdal from Cagliari, I think it was. I think that was their only signing actually. Maybe. Yeah, I think it was. Oh well, and Gregoric as well, but he hasn't played so much. Yeah, I'm surprised by them and by the way they've behaved in many games of the season. They haven't looked as complacent as last season, where they could, like be 2-0 up and lose 4-2. This season they've been more stable and looked more like a team than last season, which probably has led to them finishing 10th.
Yep.
So.
Nothing. Yeah, noteworthy that they're a long way from relegation trouble this year. I think I didn't necessarily expect them to move that far away from it. Just sort of sit around where they did last year on sort of 14th, 15th place, but they're relatively safe. I don't think they've not said anything, really not made any headlines, not really done anything, just kind of sat there in mid-table alongside Cologne and sort of done their job. So,
True. True.
so then a team that have probably overreached a little bit, FC Ingolstadt.
Yeah, they have, and I think that will show next season, because I don't think they are as good as this season has shown. They have had an amazing defense for like almost the whole season.
Yeah.
And Marvin Matip has been one of the best performers in the league, especially amongst the centre backs. But I mean, in attack they've looked a bit boring. They haven't looked too fond of new ideas. They haven't done too much in attack either. So I think they will be exposed next season.
Yeah,
probably.
Especially if Matip moves on, I imagine that will.
Yeah, well, but I mean, they have some money, of course, with Audi being a partner in the club. I think they own like 40% of the club, which isn't violating any kind of rules, so to speak. But it's still a considerable amount of ownership they have in the club. But yeah, I think they will be exposed next season.
Yeah.
But then again, it's been a good season for them and very impressive by them to actually finish 11th in the first season ever in the top 8.
Yeah, I mean they were only founded almost 10 years ago, so it's
12 years ago actually.
It's very, very impressive rise. Okay, one of the teams that finished slightly lower this season than last season, FC Augsburg.
Very impressive. Well, not too impressive this season as a whole, but impressive they actually managed to reach. Well, they managed to go through from the group in the Europa League was fantastic, and the way they played against Liverpool was nice as well. And even though they finished 12th. The season the season in Bundesliga has been a disappointment, with them actually being a part of the relegation. Talk about relegation for like the last few months of the season, but then with some help from Team Bogason, they managed to escape, and now, they finished in a very flattering position, I'd say. They haven't been good enough to finish 12th.
But then I think if you can see how far they've come since they got knocked out of the Europa League, and you have to say it's a very small club, it's a very small squad, so for them to have to deal with 2 competitions plus obviously the Pokal every so often would have been a demanding on the personnel, and I think it's to be understood that they slipped down as a couple of years ago. Freiburg had the same problem when they got relegated after being in the Europa League. So I think it's a credit to them that they finished as high as they have, considering that. And I think they'll kick on next season. Finn Bogson's going to the Euros with Iceland, and they've got a few other players in there who might attract attention from other clubs, but a lot of them have got on a bit now, so beyond the age where you're going to want to sign them, and they're very much part of a squad there. So I think they'll push on again next season, potentially move back up sort of around Mainz and Hertha and the Europa League places. But
certainly.
So if we think that Augsburg and maybe Cologne have flattered to deceive with their place, Werder Bremen, how high are they in comparison with where they should be?
Very, very high. Too high. I mean, it's a fantastic club, and the city is marvelous. But the defense and the record at home, both, I mean, those alone should be enough for them to get relegated this season. It's been, only like second to Stuttgart. Their defense has been the worst in the league. even worse than Hanover, in my opinion. Even though I think Hanover has conceded less goals, more
Yeah.
goals,
Yep. Fewer.
fewer.
They're,
Okay, oh yeah, fair enough. That's
the
correct.
Werder Bremen have the second worst. Sorry, second worst record. We've got our favourite Stuttgart
Mm,
yet to come, but yeah, Werder conceded 65 goals this season.
mm, that's
Hanover only conceded 62. So
at Stuttgart, it's like 75.
75. Yeah. uh,
Oh my.
Fairly woeful. But yeah, Bremen are very, very lucky to not be in that relegation, either to have been directly relegated or to have been in that playoff place. So
Yeah.
that sort of, what is it, 88th minute winner against Frankfurt?
Mm, mm, mm.
It's definitely flattered to see. Finishing above Hoffenheim, certainly, and Darmstadt.
Mm.
I would not give them credit for that. I
No.
think Frankfurt, Stuttgart, and Hanover, those four have all been clearly the worst teams over the course of the entire
Yeah.
season. But so they kind of got lucky on the last day with skipping out Darmstadt and Hoffenheim, maybe. So
Okay.
speaking of which, Darmstadt, Hoffenheim, opinions thereon.
Very different clubs, but then again very similar as well. Both clubs were like placed. They were in the I think fifth tier of German football. Our Hoffenheim were I think they went from the fifth tier to Bundesliga in like 7 seasons,
Yeah.
and Darmstadt did the same thing. But Hoffenheim did it with money, and Darmstadt did it with a great manager. But yeah, when it comes to the season, both clubs have been very much up and down. Hoffenheim were arguably one of the worst teams of the first part of the season. But then when Nagelsmann got appointed, they recovered and played some good football from time to time, and players like Amiri, Folland, and even the defense has looked good, which was surprising to see. But Darmstadt have been quite stable actually, which I hadn't expected at all. But in many ways stable, and they weren't really in any danger of going down, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. And did you say Folland has been sold off to Leverkusen?
Yeah, Leverkusen.
Is that how much was that? I think I saw that his release clause was about 15 to 20 million euros.
That's quite a deal, I'd say. That's a very, very good deal.
Yeah, I think especially considering since Christmas he's pushed on again. He was looking well. I'll quote the two friends that I went and watched with. They said that he was looking fat. So he's pushed on since then. He's got back to the form he was in last season when he had the joy of linking up with Modeste and Firmino. So I think maybe that must have had some sort of impact losing those two and his two strike partners. And
Of course.
yeah, so yeah, I think Nagelsmann's done an incredible job there. And I mean I can't like Hoffenheim because they go against everything that German football is supposed to be. But as a neutral, started watching a few years ago, they were one of the exciting teams. They're one of the teams that always score goals, always get forward, look to try and encourage more people to go along and watch them in their tiny village.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they've always sort of impressed me in that sense, but I don't think I could ever say that they'd be a team that I would like, unfortunately. So, your favourite, Eintracht Frankfurt. Tell me what went wrong, what went right, if anything went right. We should look forward for the second leg of their playoff.
We should, or maybe not. As a neutral, of course, you should, but as a Frankfurt fan, yeah. I mean, this season has been the worst season since we were relegated in 2011, 2012. No, 2010, 2012. 2010, 2011.
Yeah.
Sorry. And we've looked really bad, actually. Really, really unstable. And especially at the back, but we haven't scored goals. We just haven't scored any goals in recent months. Since game versus Wolfsburg at home, where Alex Meyer, Fußballgott, scored a hat-trick, we haven't scored more than like a goal a game since then, except from the last few games where we scored like 2 goals a game, where we had to score 2 goals a game against Hoffenheim. No, not against Hoffenheim. Mainz, Darmstadt. So and Dortmund, of course.
Yeah.
Not scored one goal, but it started off very well, very well, with us probably having one of the best attacking sides in the league when it comes to players and the quality and how it linking up, etc. With Castagnol, Seferovic, Maya, and Stendera all playing together.
Yeah.
Some kind of a strange, not sure what the actual figure is called. But, in some kind of form, they were. Yeah, well, they scored some amazing goals, and they scored 6 goals against Cologne, 4 goals against Stuttgart. Well, of course, 4 goals against Stuttgart is probably not too good.
Less of an achievement.
Yeah, it is. But 6 goals against Cologne at home, and Maya scored a hat-trick against Comeback. I mean, that's fantastic. And it looked decent until November, where they just stopped playing football and started throwing it upfield. And since I've been a Frankfurt fan, they've always actually played quite decent football with counter-attacking football. With it has looked quick and slick and very nice to watch often. But this season, when I have watched them, when I have streamed and watched them, it's been depressing. Much like Arsenal this season, it's been depressing to watch. And only since Kovac was brought in, it's been looking a bit better. They're back to the counter-attacking, playing football.
Yeah.
But the defense is still horrific. And I think there's only one centre back in the squad who is actually fit enough and good enough to play Bundesliga.
Yeah.
That's Marco Russ, and he's got a tumor, which is
Tragic.
horrible, tragic, and sad. But Zambrano isn't good enough in my opinion. Abraham is absolutely not good enough. He has shown that this season.
Yeah.
So our priority for next season, if we do stay up, which I think we will, is to acquire a new centre back.
Yeah. Yeah, reasonable. Okay, and then our last 2, the real stars of the show this season, shining lights of examples of how one should play football. VfB Stuttgart, second bottom, and Hannover 96 in bottom place.
Ooh, yeah. Stuttgart they played good in attack, but absolutely shambolic in defense. And to concede 75 goals, that's horrible. That might be one of the worst defensive records I've seen in Bundesliga ever.
In any league.
In any league ever.
It's horrendous. Like you talk about teams topping 100 goals scored in the Premier League as being an achievement. So that's in a 38 game season. It's an achievement to score 100 goals. So in a 34 game season, to concede 75 is really, it's good enough for some sort of pat on the back sort of job. Like they've really, really done well to get that close to the century.
It's quite an achievement, I'd say, isn't it? To actually concede 75 goals. How is that possible?
Yeah, it's embarrassing. Like, you have to look at the coach when it comes to stuff like that, because the players can be bad, but you can make players work in a system where you're not going to concede that many goals.
Absolutely. But the thing with the manager is that they start off this season with Sonega, and he tried to play some kind of a counter-pressing system like Dortmund's. The only problem is he doesn't know, well, he didn't know how to actually play such a system, and his players weren't suited enough or well good enough to actually be able to play such a system. And then when he was fired and Kramny was brought in, the same thing happened. I mean, they started off playing very well with Kramny, but then they got too optimistic and started, pressing too high, and the teams broke through that and scored a goal, some counters. So it's been a failure, defensive failure for Stuttgart, and they really do deserve to get relegated.
Yeah. Yeah, and Hanover, just to finish off.
Just bad. Just bad.
What a way to sum it up. Yeah, I mean, they're over 50 points behind Bayern.
Wow.
Which is it's pretty impressive. They're also more than 50 points behind Dortmund as well. So to say they're out back would be an understatement. I think they've just not had good enough players from start to finish. It's not necessarily been that there's been an issue with the trainer. Like when I went and watched them play, they didn't have. There was no problem with the way they played. They were well set up. They just generally, the players weren't good enough.
Great.
Which is a shame because it's a decent club, but you have to look at, in this case, the general manager and see what's going on there and why they've brought in such low quality players, how they've let Bittencourt and Stindl go in one season, which 100% got them relegated. Those two have been outstanding. Stindl at Gladbach has been a fantastic acquisition, so there's got to be some questions asked there as to that, and I can't see them coming straight back up from the second division. I think they're going to be down there for quite some time.
Yeah, seems reasonable.
Yeah. Speaking of the second division, just quickly to round this off, we've got two teams coming up, obviously. We have the SC Freiburg, who were probably the standout team in the league this year, finished champions by 5 points, I think. So they were impressive. And then the more important story, I guess the biggest story that I wanted to get you to talk about just to round this off was Red Bull Leipzig, or Rasenballsport Leipzig, if we're going to be if we're going to pull the wool over our own eyes. What do we think about them coming up and what that says about the future of German football?
Well, I mean, I think I described it quite well in my piece about them, my rhyming piece, which was very focused on the rise of Leipzig and the eventual decline of Leipzig, which I as kind of a self-proclaimed Nostradamus proclaimed. But Leipzig have been, it is a very good team in many ways, a very good team, and they really do deserve to get promoted. But the season itself, no, not the season, the club itself, isn't worthy of Bundesliga, or even Zweite Bundesliga, or even Dritte, in my opinion. The club itself, the actual club, so to speak, which, in my opinion, can't even be actually classified as a club.
Well, it shouldn't exist, should it? Really? I mean, there's so many. It's the only reason they exist. I was looking this up because they were a fifth division team. The DFB have no control over them. So they were looking at, who was it? They said they were looking at Red Bull were looking at taking over. I think it was Hamburg. It was a couple of pretty huge Bundesliga clubs, but they couldn't because of DFB regulations.
Right.
And the DFB have no control over the fifth division, so they sunk all the way down there to start their project. The team itself, as you say, is a very exciting young team. They've got a policy of not bringing in players, I think, over the age of 24 on transfers. So they're very, very exciting young team.
Wow. So let's see. To get to the top is not an easy task. I do know it's a true task,
but I might just tell you how I feel, how I know that we will become for real. You, Leipzig, will rise to the top, reach European football, and then flop. Flop alla VfL Volkswagen, vad ska jag ens sagen, of European football, after you've had your rise and fall. But you back to your MG-infested ladder will crawl. You'll find yourself in the bottom half of the table. Oh no, your position won't be stable. Red Bull will pull out, and what will happen then? You'll be the next unlucky KFC, Göttingen. The follow-through divisions will be swift and quick. DFB takes every chance to hit you with a stick. No, perhaps a bold won't even be there to kick. Soon you'll be in the 50, nothing left to fear, and you won't remember how you actually ended up here. Or what will be even worse, which honestly should be given its own worse, is that when you're done dying in fun, Bundesliga will be different regarding how it's run. You're a brilliant example of everything that's bad. We'll all be sad and wonder why didn't we see the fall? We did, but we just didn't fight it at all. That's from Balzac and Energy by Axel Fott.
So yeah, I was very, very impressive little bit of poetry there, and we're not cultured here on the BundesSpeaker podcast. We've got poetry for you, we've got football for you, culture left, right, and centre. We've got town reviews. So yeah, that's a brief taster of what we've got coming up. There's a bit of a bumper first episode to get through the season review. We're gonna have a bit of a chat about the best players from last season next time. Hopefully that will be a bit shorter. Don't want to put you all into comas. I know what my voice sounds like. So we will be back at some point soon with the next podcast. We hope you've enjoyed the first one. I hope you enjoyed Axel's poem at the end, which was a nice surprise for me as well. I've not heard that read out loud. I've just seen it written. You can find much more of our work, of our writing, our sort of day-to-day job, I guess, on the website. We're adding stuff all the time. If you want to write for us, if you want to be involved in any way, get in touch. As I say, I'm on Twitter at Ali Haggis or Axel at Millennium Folk. Of course, the site itself as well at Fresh Gegenpress. And from the two of us, hope you enjoyed the first session, and we will speak to you again very soon.